Beyond Limits. Expanding minds. Opening hearts. Connecting into oneness. Welcome to Beyond Limits. I'm Reverend Larry DeRusha in St. Louis, Missouri at the Center for Spiritual Living. And this is Reverend Lee Wallach, and he's with the Dallas Center. I was going to ask you really quickly your experience of COVID over the last year or so in terms of people that you interact with in your center, as well as people that are friends and all. What's been your overall experience with it?
I think it's been 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there have been people who are deathly afraid, people who have really taken it very seriously, restricted themselves to their homes, have followed all of the guidelines. And then you've got the other side that they feel that they've got their health. Therefore, if they've got their health and their immune system is functioning properly, their interpretation of the data is there's a very small chance that you're going to get it and die from it. And so they're sort of saying it's no different to them than getting a really bad case of the flu. So it goes both ways. And, you know, as a minister, you're in the middle of it and you go, well, it's done unto you as you believe.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell you that probably half of my community has been received the shot, either the whichever one you want to talk about, and half of the community have not received the shot.
I think that from people that I talk to, that seems to be the general thing that's been going on. Is our center's the same way. It's about half and half. Half of them have it, and half of them have gotten the shot, and half of them haven't. And it's also interesting, the underlying fear that some people have. We've got a few that are just, they won't budge out of their house no matter what because they're scared to death. And they're scared of the next variant, the Delta variant that's coming. And then they're going to be scared of the next one. And it seems like they're just looking for the next thing to keep themselves safe from.
And you know, Larry, what's so sad about that is that fear causes stress in the immune system, which then breaks down the immune system and makes us more susceptible to the disease. So fear is actually so working against us, it's incredible.
Absolutely. So, and unfortunately, the people that are like that can't see the logic of that. They don't understand it because their perception is very limited. Their perception is just, and I'm not really under stress. I just don't like this idea of going out and being around people because I might catch something. They're able to talk about it, but they don't have the experience of the fact that their body is under stress just by the very nature of what they're saying.
And we fool ourselves. It's like we're a lobster and the water's warm and all of a sudden it keeps getting hot. We don't even want to admit that the water's boiling. And we're about to get fried.
Reminds me of the environment.
Yeah.
We're all this week we're having 70-degree temperatures, and all last week we had 100, 102, 104. It's all over the place.
It's incredible. You know, one of the things that happened to me today, and I really want to share this with our community out there, is this. You and I both teach the same thing. In order to have a good life, you have to have a spiritual practice, and it's persistent and consistent in it. And so I'm going to give you the best example that I can. I've been going to a boutique gym for about 19 months. And in that 19 months, I have broken a wrist and had surgery. I've fallen and broken a hip and had 2 surgeries. But I've only missed with my hand, I missed 12 weeks of working out. And then with my hip, I missed of working out. But I've been persistent and consistent working out at the gym. Well, this is all computer generated. So we looked at what were my results in 4 exercises when I started a little over a year and a half, and what were my results today.
Okay.
In the chest press on this machine, my results were 50% greater. I had 50% greater strength. On a low pulley row, which is pulling a cable in for the back, I had doubled my strength. On the
Wow.
on the delta press, I doubled my strength. On the pull down for the back, 80% greater. But you see,
Gee.
when I looked at it week by week, I never saw that increase. But over the
Right.
period of time of sticking with it,
Yeah.
same thing happens with meditation. Same thing happens with
Yeah.
spiritual mind treatment, with
Yeah.
forgiveness, with gratitude, with everything we talk about.
Only difference is that I subscribe to Emerson's idea that when the urge to exercise comes over me, I lay down until it passes. I'm not the greatest when it comes to doing regular exercise, I have to admit. I do a spiritual practice. I tried doing it all day long
Yeah.
because the whole idea is to stay present. And that's part of it, is to stay present in a way that you can still do what you need to do and still work and all. And that's the challenge, being aware of the present moment all the time. And we've had a few questions from people, and I've had it at our center about consciousness, and Ernest Holmes talking about universal mind, and then he's talking about the divine. And there's some mix-up people have, especially the ones that are just coming and trying to understand where this is applicable for them. And let's talk a little about that in terms of Ernest Holmes' philosophy. And so, universal mind. Tell me what universal mind. I'll be the advocate here.
Universal mind, it's all thought. It's everything. It's all wisdom. It's all thought that could ever be. It's infinite intelligence. And in that infinite intelligence, there's perfect balance. There has to be
Hmm.
perfect balance in the universal. Otherwise, the universal would self-destruct. Now, the
Right.
universal then has individualized itself as you and I. And
Hmm.
so we are still part of that collective, that universal intelligence, but we've been given this ego. I'm going to call it the ego, the little mind,
Hmm.
which knows contrast. And that
Hmm.
which we think about most, it the universal intelligence creates for our experience. So
So when we
it's
say, let me ask you, so when you say the little mind, the ego, and it knows contrasts, the question always comes up is, so do we really need ego? Because most spiritual traditions are trying to get rid of the ego. Then how would you function? Because then there would be no contrast.
yeah, how would you experience life without contrast? It's impossible. So I think the lack of experience would be you're back
Mm.
in the universal mind where there's no experience, you're
Right.
just there.
Yeah.
I think the divine seeks to express and experience itself through individualizing itself as you and I and everybody else and all of the animals. And that whole experience, though, it's always in perfect harmony. Now,
Right.
individually between you and me, I'm going back and forth. I'm having contrast. I'm in and out of it. And I have only moments of knowing the universal mind.
Yeah.
Brief, brief moments.
And your experience is only of yourself,
Exactly.
because you can't have actually an experience of anything outside of yourself.
Exactly.
And that's difficult for people to understand, I think, because we're not trained that way at all. And this idea that when I shake hands with somebody, well, I'm feeling that person. No, you're actually only feeling your own hand. When you see something, you're only seeing what is in your eyeball transferred into an electrochemical process in the brain. So we really only experience ourselves. It doesn't mean that there isn't a world out there, but our experience is only of ourselves. And so that confuses people. But really, the other thing is, how do I take this idea of this greater consciousness and work it into my life? Because I come from the place in the teachings of the Judeo-Christian, which is, God is out there, and I have to placate this God in some way in order to get what I really want or desire, and that always confused me, especially when I was in Sunday school. It made no sense to me. There wasn't any logic to it. And Ernest really, for me, pulled all that together in a way that made sense. And I think the idea of doing affirmative prayer, people are drawn to, but don't quite understand it. Fill us in on that.
Well, you know, Ernest, he took the words of Jesus and he made it the basis of all that he taught. And he said,
Yeah.
Jesus said, it is done unto you as you believe. You don't have to placate no God outside. You don't have to get down and worship and beg and beseech. He said, it is done unto you as you believe. So he gave you the key. Create a belief that will create an experience. And then you can also know what your beliefs are by just simply looking at your experience. And here's what I tell the people. Don't believe Larry and don't believe Lee. Test this out for yourself.
Yeah,
That's the only way you're going to be able to do it. And here's the key thing. Remember, what you think you believe is not the truth, because most of your beliefs are subconscious. They're in your unconscious mind. You don't even know you've had them. This week at Agape, I talked about the collective race consciousness, or the consciousness of the world, the consciousness of society. And what we don't understand is that we may think we've got thoughts, and that's what the law is responding to, the creative intelligence is responding to. However, we're being bombarded every day with all of this world view, all of this America view, all of the Texas view, the Dallas view, the St. Louis view. And that view is having an impact on us. It's like radioactive waves, and they're penetrating us, and we don't even know it, but it's affecting our inner thought. It surrounds us, and it affects us.
We knew that back from the 1940s, late 30s and 1940s, when advertising realized that you could bombard somebody with advertising, and that they would believe that the Cheerios they were selecting freely and putting it in their basket. And actually, it wasn't. It was the subconscious going, that's familiar, I know that, put that in your basket. And since then, all we have to do is look at television today and where it's progressed to. They now know what cognitive dissonance is. They know how to utilize that. And most of the pharmaceutical ads use it very well. They show you walking on the beach. You've got the spouse that you want, or the boyfriend, girlfriend you want. It's a beautiful time. You have a beautiful body. Everything is there, and yet they're telling you you're going to die. You're going to have all these different problems. Your liver's going to fail. Your spleen's going to fail. You're going to lose your big toes. But you're certainly going to enjoy the pictures while you're doing it. So they've split the mind. The mind doesn't know what to believe, but it does love images.
Yes.
And so the images take precedence over what's being said, and they know that. And in the image, they put the brand name of the drug, and when the person goes to the doctor, they say, Doc, I need this drug because I want to go walk on the beach in the Carolinas, or I want to go walk on the beach in the Caribbean, wherever it may be. So give me the drug.
And Larry, did you know that McDonald's has now put the vaccine shot, a picture of the vaccine shot, on its container for French fries?
Yeah.
So when you buy French fries, there, get a vaccine and eat these fries.
Yeah. Or Krispy Kremes. Go get a shot and we'll give you a Krispy Kremes and you'll be better.
And think about that, what we're just talking about there, and how you're programmed into seeing certain ways. Think about what we talked about at the very beginning about why do half the people are in, and another half of the people are seeing it completely different.
Yeah.
Because you tend to focus your attention on things that support what you generally believe. Those who are in fear are looking for fear things. Those that are different are looking for other things. And
I think that comes from one of the basic concepts that we hold is we have to be right all the time. Yeah. And if we're going to say something or we get to this point especially in our life later on where we start to lose that a little bit. But we do have so many beliefs that are, 40 years, 50 years of beliefs that have built up the evidence for them and are saying, you can't tell me any differently. Yeah. And so what happens is it contributes to this division that we have. And where we need to go is an understanding. For example, I tell people when they ask me, well, what is love really about? And they say, when you love your spouse, what does that mean? When you love your spouse. I said, well, the ultimate concept is the universe is love. The ultimate understanding of that is that when you love somebody, you collapse the space between you into oneness. Not that there's this object and this object that have
Yes.
these experiences. It's a collapse into that oneness, which is love.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, I had no idea that's what this was all about. So these concepts are foreign to most people. They don't understand them because we're raised. And I say, most of my education was worthless, and I'm sorry that we paid for it,
Yeah.
because so much of it was really indoctrination. And we can see this today with the way they want to craft history and the
Yes.
books that you get. And
Yes.
it's like, okay, we're going to give you a point of view that you have to adopt because we say so.
Well,
Well,
Larry, Columbus discovered America. He never
yeah,
set foot on any soil anywhere near America. And then you've got the story here in Texas of the Alamo.
yeah,
It's totally fiction. It's all made up. Nothing like that ever
yeah,
happened.
I know. And California was founded by New Yorkers. Yes, there's so many of those kinds of things. And think about it, though, because the children that are reading that are growing up like we did, believing the Alamo was all about this fight of, you know, Mexico trying to take the state away from us.
Yeah.
And so we believed that. Look at John Wayne. He made that movie fully because he believed that that's the way it happened.
Yes.
And it was absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
So we have to be careful about that. We have to be on guard. It's like the gargoyle at the gate has to be the gargoyle, guarding your subconscious mind. And what we tell people in our teaching is, look, you have to know that everything that you're watching, everything you're listening to is going into the subconscious mind. Every single thing that you perceive is stored as memory in your body, and it comes back at times.
Yeah.
So is that what you want?
Yeah. And that's the key thing. Constantly question everything.
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 Yeah.
Because even if you think you know it, you really don't. There's infinite wisdom out there. So if you say you know something, how much of the wisdom are you blocking out? You're
Yeah.
not even open to the possibility.
And most of the time you're regurgitating what you already have in your subconscious mind, and you're doing it over and over again. Every time you meet, why do we love to meet somebody new is to tell all of our stories. We're storytellers, there's no doubt. We love telling stories, and we love to give people new ideas, uh, which are our ideas that we would love for them to pass on for themselves. This is all powerful, but if we come down to how the law works, because we talk about love and the law, how this all works in terms of how does the average person who walks into your center understand how they can utilize this in their life?
The way I teach it very simply is seed, soil, plant.
Hmm.
The law works is that the thought atmosphere that you create is a seed. The law is the soil. You have a belief, that belief goes into the soil, and that soil, given the time in human construct, produces the effect, the event,
Ex-
the plant.
except
Except if you dig it up.
except if you dig it up, or you don't believe you actually planted that.
That's
I
right.
also like that analogy of you planted a walnut tree expecting to get avocados.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it seems like a very simple process, but it's a mental thought or a conscious thought that goes into a subconscious, meaning something greater that we are unaware of, and that becomes planted, and it germinates with every thought we have that that's true, and it doesn't germinate when we don't believe that it's true.
That
Yes.
means our thoughts have to be aligned with what we desire. We have, because belief would tell you all thoughts, words, actions, and feelings aligned with
Right.
that new belief.
Right. Right. And that's what Holmes was so amazing when he finally distilled it down to, let's do this logically and just do it step by step so that you can do it. But remember, it's not a formula, it's a teaching tool. And when you get to a place where you can utilize it without thinking about it, then you can really go deeper with it, because the whole essence is to take it into greater consciousness, where, as I call it, the quantum field, the quantum potentiality becomes possibility, which at the next step, when you declare, it becomes reality.
Yes.
That's such a powerful thing, and I know that people get lost in the Science of Mind textbook because it goes through a lot of explanation, but I tell people, don't get lost, because actually most of the textbook is a very small amount of that. Most of it is him doing the actual work, telling you, here's how you do an affirmation, and here's a bunch of them, and here's some treatments, and here he loved to give examples of what was going on. So the textbook, in the first 4 chapters, it explains everything you really need to know.
That's all you need to know.
Yeah, it's perfect. And then there's all of the back up to that. He goes into the explanations of it, and he goes into the demonstrations of it. And that's something I think people need to understand, is the demonstration, because if they don't hear enough about demonstration, they're not sure that it really works, especially if they're talking to their friends and their friends say, well, what's it done for you?
Exactly. And what that means is, not only do you hear about the demonstrations, you've got to demonstrate yourself. Because if you're not demonstrating yourself, you'll never believe.
And Ernest was really, really strong about that, including all the ministers in the movement. I love the story of, he was in New York City or Boston, and he was talking to, I think it was a Methodist minister, Bob, I've forgotten his name, but anyway, he was a prominent minister, and he encouraged him to come out to California and join the center out there and take the Hollywood Church, which was open. And the guy decided he would do that, and he came out there, and he wasn't having success. And after about 6 months, he went to Ernest Holmes and he said, Ernest, I need about $10,000 to keep this budget and everything running. And Ernest said, okay, go do your treatment. And he said, what do you mean? No, I came to you to borrow the money. And he said, no, you do your treatment or leave the church and go back to what you were doing before. He's very matter of fact. And also, I was talking to somebody who's out from Hollywood, and it's amazing how many people went to hear Ernest Holmes, who are actors and directors and producers, and they love that whole idea of get into it. It's like getting into the character. You get into it and believe it, but then walk away from that character. And so he had a lot of people in LA that really practiced this and utilized it over and over and over again. One of my favorites was Patty Page, and she talked about it all the time when she would do her tours around the country and how much it meant to her. So I love this idea of consciousness and the quantum field and all that, but I also want people to understand that we need to personalize that. And that's what is so confusing when we go back to saying, go ahead and personalize it as your personal God. And the reason for that is make it such that you can talk to it like your mother or your father, in a way that you're saying, okay, this is it, I'm declaring this, and have a personal experience, even if it's a discussion with this, that's going to move you through that place of it being out there, either God out there or the quantum field out there, into this presence that's inside.
It's almost like you're saying anthropomorphize it, give it human qualities so that you can believe it. And that's so funny, because the way I talk to God is I have a conversation. I literally say, hey, God, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm thinking about. These are my questions. Okay, I'm open. Talk to me. Yeah.
Yep. And I think that's powerful, and it really helps people just coming into class, because they're in between giving this up and trying to figure out what this new thing is.
Yeah.
And actually, all we really need to do is explain that they really are one and the same thing, but we're pulling it from outside of ourselves and putting it inside of ourselves. And that's why they always say in the Bible, God is always with you.
Yeah.
The presence is always there.
Right in here. In that heart.
Yeah. Well, we've run out our time, so we're back after a bit of what I wouldn't call a vacation, because it's been some extra work, and we're back online. So tune in and watch us on our YouTube channel. Also, check out Agape. What's your address for Agape?
AgapeSpiritualCenter.com.
Yeah. Oh, easy. And then the St. Louis Center for Spiritual Living .org is ours. And check out both of those because we have programs. There's our audios and videos and articles and all that kind of stuff that you can check in. More people come to our center because they found us online than any other way. Yeah. All right, sir. Thank you very much. And we'll catch you on the next show, which is next week. Beyond Limits. Join us and ask your questions. Check our website for details on our call-in shows. Check BeyondLimitsRadio.com. That's BeyondLimitsRadio.com.